I've learnt so much from working with community partners, and I think that's a good approach to have to community work as well, as to not be too over prescriptive in the way things should run. It's about listening, I think, as well as directing, because community groups, they have so much experience and so much knowledge about what works and what doesn't. And that varies from community to community, right? What works here in Ōtara is not going to work necessarily somewhere else, because you have this shared community identity that's really unique. And so part of making something successful is really listening to the people who are serving that community and what's going to work for them.
This podcast is proudly supported by the Ōtara Network Action Committee, ONAC, community-owned, community-driven and community-led.
Kia ora, my name is Danielle Tua and I'm here with
Erin from Beautification Trust.
Kia ora, Erin. Thanks for coming in to see us today. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do for work? I see you have the Beautification Trust uniform on.
Yeah, so I'm from Beautification Trust. We are a community organisation and charity based in Manurewa, and we have been going for about 22, 23 years now, and we don't just service Manurewa, we work all across South Auckland and East Auckland, and I've been in this role for about 3.5 years, and we're basically all about connecting the community to the environment and actively getting them involved in its protection, restoration, and building a community of belonging along the way. So yeah, that's kind of our main kaupapa in a nutshell.
Awesome. How did you find us here at Ōtara? How did you come across our...
Yeah, quite organically actually. So we do a lot of different work streams at the Trust, and one of them is around the waste issues that we have in our communities. We know that that's a really big thing that, we see it out on the streets, right? We have illegally dumped rubbish, we have litter in our natural environment, and that has a lot of negative impacts. So we've been involved in the waste space for quite a while. And one of the specific things that we are focusing on is around that illegally dumped rubbish. If you've ever driven past somewhere and there's couches and mattresses and bagged rubbish, that kind of stuff, all piled in one spot, that's what we mean when we say illegal dumping. And we know that it's out there and it's a really complex issue, but we work with Auckland Council for a contract to try and help prevent it and understand the problem and work with community to come up with some solutions. So recently, probably within the last year, we shifted our area to Ōtara Papatoetoe Local Board, and I was actually doing something completely different at the time, and I got an email from Judy from Accelerating Aotearoa asking for our support on a graffiti paint-out project, a clean-up project, and I was like, awesome, I'll send you some support, some resources for that, because it's an awesome thing to do. And we just got talking. We kind of had a chat about the kaupapa of each of our organisations, and I was like, you guys are so amazing, you sound like the focal point of Ōtara, you are the community here, and that's really what we wanted to find. I wanted to find someone who was already doing community work in this space, already supporting people out there who need help, and I said, let's have a chat, let's talk about how we can collaborate on this. And a month or two later we'd made a partnership, and we'd set up a little working group. I like to think of it more as a bit of a task force with Accelerating Aotearoa and some other partners from Ōtara Waterways and Lakes Trust, Kāinga Ora, and most notably a really awesome group of rangatahi from Accelerating Aotearoa who are going to be doing a lot of the on-the-ground work connecting with the community. So that's how that came about.
Yeah.
It's been around for about a year now, so pretty early stages, but we've already achieved some really awesome things. So.
Yeah, we got the ball rolling, eh?
Exactly.
Awesome. That's such amazing work that you guys are doing, and the collaborations are cool too.
Yeah.
What are some of your struggles you found with collaborating with communities?
I mean, any collaborative space is always going to come with challenges, but I think as long as the motivation and the intent is strong and is right, and that being the intent to serve our community and make things better for people, as long as that's really strong, you can usually always overcome those things. I think, there's a lot of different factors that come into what makes something a challenge for someone. Just out there in the community, everything's connected, right? So if there are financial pressures, social pressures, all the things that might be making something hard for someone day to day, it's all connected, and one of the ways that we see that come into light is through things like waste. So we can't ever treat it as just this one thing and try and apply solutions to this one thing. It's a holistic approach, and that's what Accelerating Aotearoa is already doing. They're already trying to provide these wraparound services for people, and by putting the conversation around waste in that, so that it's all one thing, I think we're going to have a lot greater chance of success. In terms of challenges, I think everyone's got a different idea of what success looks like sometimes, and it's just about having a conversation about setting goals that we all are working towards and believe in, and just acknowledging that everyone's got different skills to bring to the table, and making sure everyone feels really valued. Because the intent is always really, really good, and really, really positive. So
everybody wanting to achieve the same goal.
Absolutely.
And what are the benefits you've found working within close communities?
So good.
Yeah.
It's really rewarding work to see and connect with people on that personal level, just to talk to people face to face and hear about their life experiences. I've learnt so much from working with community partners, and I think that's a good approach to have to community work, as well as to not be too over-prescriptive in the way things should run. It's about listening, I think, as well as directing, because community groups, they have so much experience and so much knowledge about what works and what doesn't, and that varies from community to community, right? What works here in Ōtara is not going to work necessarily somewhere else, because you have this shared community identity that's really unique. And so part of making something successful is really listening to the people who are serving that community and what's going to work for them. So
that's so cool. I really liked, I think I just got in a daze just listening to all the amazing work that you guys are doing, and all the collaborating with smaller businesses, like smaller community groups, like ourselves, and even other community groups that you're working with, because I know most of our homes here are kāinga ora homes, so it's good to see that they're jumped on board to come and help, and help their communities and their households to do better with their illegal dumping and things like that.
Yeah, it's all connected, right? Like I mentioned, it's
you can't kind of just go knock on the door and expect people to come in.
Yeah, it's about understanding what's already going on in people's lives, right? And there's a lot going on for many people, so it's trying to meet people where they are, and like meeting people where they're at means that they're more likely to hear you out. I think you're kind of setting yourself up for failure if you go in from a position of privilege and are expecting people to prioritise what you are saying is important, if that's not the biggest priority for them at the time, you know, like if someone's main focus is putting food on the table that day or that week, it's not helpful to anyone to go in and say, actually, you should prioritize this instead. You know, like you've got to acknowledge the other things that are in play for people. So it's trying to meet people where they are and sort of bring them along in the journey.
To build the relationships.
Absolutely. It's that wraparound service.
Yeah. Oh no, that's amazing work that you're doing out here. And have you always wanted to do this type of work?
I don't know if I knew at the time when I was younger, you know, at the top of my head, but I think deep down always wanted to do something around the environment because I'm really passionate about, you know, the ecosystems we have here in New Zealand. They're not like anywhere else in the world. And I just think that connecting to nature is such a big part of our well-being as well. It's a core part of who we are as New Zealanders, and I think a lot of us have kind of lost that in some way in the modern age. And so reconnecting people to the whenua and to taio is more than just a good thing to do. It's a good thing for us, just for our well-being. And connecting with community it goes hand in hand, right, with working with the environment, because we all have a relationship with our natural spaces, and we can't have one without the other. So when I got the opportunity to move into this space, I was really grateful, and it's just evolved in so many unique ways that I didn't anticipate.
You go
I didn't think that I would be here doing a podcast about this, 5 years ago. So I really love the community work that we do and the environment work that we do. I just think it's so important.
Yeah, and the more people that know about it is going to help. The more hands get involved.
For sure.
To get it all done. So, so this podcast hopefully would get shared and viewed by many people, and that's one job done. And within the hour that we've sat together, there'll be at least 20 people who would jump on and hear all the positive things that you guys are doing, as well as collaborating with accelerating Aotearoa and Ōtara waterways and lakes. So this is amazing. What would you see in the next 10 years? What would you like to see in terms of this project and job that everyone's working on together? What's some future goals where you want to see it in 10 years?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's very early stages at the moment. We've only been in collaboration for a year, but already we're seeing some really amazing stuff. We've got our 274 cleanup queens established. They're a group of rangatahi who are going to be out there in the community talking to people about the kind of resources that they can use to manage, waste as a thing in their lives, and also just connect them to services that are going to make things a little bit easier. So our big focus for this coming year is around the Auckland Council Inorganics service, which is a really great opportunity for people to responsibly get rid of some larger items. We recognise that there is a bit of a barrier there with those items that you can't really fit in your red bin or recycling bin, and it does have a cost associated to take them to a landfill or a transfer station. So it can be a challenge to know what to do if that's a barrier for you. So the inorganic service is once a year, and some of the dates are going to be coming up for the Ōtara area soon, and our group of cleanup queens, they're going to be out there in the community talking to people, booking them in, giving them the need-to-know information, and just helping them to access that service, because it solves something for people right here and now. It's going to be processed in a way that's quite sustainable. Like, a lot of the stuff is harvested and the resources that can be recycled from it are recycled.
Yeah.
And it's part of a much wider network of resource recovery. And that includes, things like community recycling centres, things get repaired at repair cafes, and resources are just shared around. And so when you're talking about 10 years from now, I'd love to see that grow and expand, and also for us to have a really robust resource recovery network where things are kind of kept in a loop. I think when we're talking about the issue of waste, we have to also talk about the linear system that we're in currently and what we're moving towards, which is a circular system, a circular economy. And that basically just means when we buy and consume products right now, it's in a very straight line, which means that the resources are extracted from the ground, from the earth to make it. It's sold to us. We use it until it either breaks or is no longer needed, and then it's put in a landfill. And that life cycle is a problem because we end up with all of this rubbish at the end that is harmful for the environment. And what we want to move towards is the idea of the circular system or a circular economy where things have an indefinite life cycle. I think they just go round and round and round, and it can be reused, repaired, recycled, and we don't have to extract so much from the earth and from the environment to make something, and we don't have to throw so much away. I think we've got a big overconsumption culture at the moment, where there's a lot of quite low quality products for cheap prices, and they have really short life cycles, If you've ever bought something from a retail store that's broken within 2 months.
Yes, many of my children's toys was one of them.
So that's not necessarily the consumer's fault. It's part of a big structural issue, right?
Yeah.
So, 10 years from now, I'd love to see the community level of support really grow. Our rangatahi group to just,
get the word out there.
Get
people listening and educated about these things. Eh?
But also on a bigger level, like we would love to see some big structural changes, including things like there's some legislation on the table at the moment, like the Right to Repair Bill, which basically would require companies and manufacturers to include the ability to repair in order to sell an item. So it's trying to stop things being made to be thrown away. And so that's on the table at the moment for discussion at government. So, if you want to do something right now, you can write to your local MP, say, I support it, I would like you to support it too.
Awesome.
There's other initiatives that have been really successful overseas, like the container return scheme. That's basically where, in generations past, we actually did have it in New Zealand, where bottles and cans had a refund.
I remember
cost.
that. I do remember that. I think
take it back.
Yeah, cans are still going, but not bottles. I wouldn't know where to get that.
In Australia, they do have certain systems, and we get a lot of products that are sold in both countries. So here we don't have any kind of container return scheme. We have things like the soft plastics collection, which is voluntary and you don't get any money back from it, but it's a good thing to do. But what a container return scheme might look like here is that we have collection points for things like plastic bottles, metal cans.
Yes.
And it gives it a value.
Yeah.
So why would you throw it away if you can get
something
back from it? And it's been really successful overseas. It's been a bit of legislation that's kind of been tabled for the time being. But, if you want to do something, write to your local MP, spread the word, say that, this will be a really good thing for us. And, when the community speaks, people listen. So.
Yeah, well, I think even at the same time, it leaves more space in our rubbish bins for actual garbage to go into, and then we have a separate one for the recycling items where I think more people would jump on board knowing that they're getting a cent back, even if it's 1 cent.
Absolutely.
Every dollar adds up. So that's awesome. And I think that Ōtara, you should jump on board, find this legislation. We'll put it in the bottom of our podcast, and you can have a look and jump on. And I think it's more like a copy and paste. It's simple, and you can send it through, and let's get heard, and let's do these things for our community and our environment, because at the end of the day we need to live here, and so do our children and many generations after us. So it's about time we start taking care of our environment and our country. I don't think it's not going to just stop here. We're going to carry on and share this information. So I did hear you talk about inorganics. I remember back in my days there was just piles of rubbish all along the road when it was Organics Day, but now there's a different way of getting that inorganic pickup now. And I know many people are unaware of how to do that. So I believe there's a little note you get inside your letterbox.
Yep, but you can actually book it any time.
Okay.
So it's an online booking system. If you just search in Auckland Council Inorganics, you'll be directed to the book a pickup page. And it is only once a year, so you have to put in your address and find out where when your collection is coming up.
Yeah.
And you just put in your details, and once your booking is made, you get contacted about when your collection day will be. And there are some rules and restrictions about what you can put out and how much, but all that information is available online, and also our cleanup queens are hopefully going to be spreading that word too, supporting you so that it's easy to do. And I believe the collection is done in 2 parts, so one pickup will be for the reusable items, the other will be for the non-reusable items, and they're taken to a transfer station, and then there's a whole team of people who sort through it. If it can be repaired, it will be repaired. If it can be redistributed, it will be redistributed, and if it can be recycled, it will be recycled. So we go through all of these steps before we have to throw anything away. So it's quite a robust system for trying to minimize landfill waste.
Yeah, and that's what we want. We want to leave the landfill for the landfill, and not just throwing everything and anything out that you just don't have space for anymore.
Absolutely.
Repurposing it and giving it to other families that are in need, or giving it to other people in communities that might put it to good use. So.
And that creates, connection, right?
Yeah.
Sharing and keeping things within your whānau and your community, it creates that sense of belonging, right? You're connected to your neighbours, and we know that, there's a lot of stresses and pressures out there, but like you said, we want to try and make it so that people are not overwhelmed with waste, and so they can use their rubbish bin for things that can only go to landfill.
Yeah.
And there are places for you to take the other stuff. So one thing that happened in the last year was the rollout of the food scraps collection bins. I think around 45% or so of an average Aucklander's red bin was food. And so when you consider that's now being taken away separately to be made into fertiliser, that leaves you with so much more space for your red bin to be used for landfill only items. So if there's something that you want to do right now to reduce your waste, it would be definitely using your food scraps bin for all of your food waste. Compost at home if you can, but that's an option there for you. And also we try and teach people about what can and can't go in the recycling, just so that you are making sure that if it can be recycled, you're using that other one, the yellow bin for that. Trying to avoid that situation where there's too much waste and you're feeling really overwhelmed and you don't know what to do with it, and that creating that kind of stressful environment where it seems like too much.
Yeah. Because I do know there are some people that, why is my red bin smaller than the yellow bin when I'm throwing out more of this and less of that? But I don't think they're understanding that the yellow bin is used for recycling, which is your bottles and we can educate more on those recycling items, but it's saving more for those plastic items to go into there, right? And then the other things, like landfill, go into your red bin, which you shouldn't really be filling that up, but we do, because I know I do. And then if there's no room in that bin, then I just chuck it in that bin. So we're not going to tell my waste management people that, but you know, sometimes it's just a matter of life's getting in the way, and I'm just going to put it wherever I need it just to get it out of my face. But that's why we're here. We're about to come knocking on your doors and to educate you on how you can recycle, and even give some little experiments on what's good and what's not safe for the environment.
Yeah, it can be, you know, it seems like a thing that would be really difficult, but just taking it one step at a time. And there have been some changes to the recycling standards and what is accepted and what's not. So we understand that can be really confusing. So we're not coming in from a position of trying to blame anyone or finger pointing, because that doesn't help anyone, right? Yeah. It doesn't help the issue or the reality of what's happening. So it's just coming at it with a position of empathy. Yeah. And that, I feel like, is the way that we get success with this. And
I know there are more places that we can take some sort of household items to, eh? I know there's a cardboard place somewhere in East Tamaki. I will try and find out what that place is and put it in the bottom so that people can minimise those spaces in the bins by breaking down your boxes and taking them to those places, because I know that's what we do here. We get a lot of boxes when our food boxes, and everybody just seems to drop off their boxes here. But yeah, breaking those down, and even for us it's a struggle to get rid of, but once we found that place, it became a lot easier. It was just one big load, take it down, and there was a food scrap. Like, I know there's a few community gardens in the area that would love the food scraps of people. So even if you're not using your food scrap bin for your food scraps, try and get it to your local community gardens. And I know that they'll use it to then break down into fertilizers. So.
It's whatever works for you, right?
Yeah.
And one other resource that we made within the last year or so was, it's got a long name. It's called the... Rehome, Recycle, and
Reuse?
You know what? I can't even remember the full title. It's quite long. I've just been calling it the Waste Directory.
Yeah.
It's basically a interactive online map of Auckland, and all of the places that you can take different kinds of items, either for recycling, rehoming it to somewhere else, or for disposal.
Yes.
All of those places are listed in South and East Auckland. You can click on them, you can see a profile of what they take, and it'll link you to Google Maps show you how to get there.
Cool.
There's all sorts of stuff, like item types that you can sort through, right down to things like bottle caps or razors or soft plastics.
Yeah.
All the little initiatives out there where people are collecting things for recycling, we've tried to populate that all over the map. So if you're not sure what to do with an item, you can key it into the search bar, or you can look through the categories and see where takes it to be recycled or, kept in that circular system.
Yeah, well, we definitely need to know that map. So hopefully we can get a link to... just a quick link to click on at the bottom of our videos, that where people can go and have a look and have a read through to help us to help you guys.
Yeah,
hey.
I would love that.
Yeah, and just to help the environment, because whatever helps the environment makes us warm. And I know it's going to make our waters a lot better, cleaner, everything, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
it creates pride, right, in our community when we're keeping it clean. We are, proud to say that we're from there as well. We already are, but it's about extending that into all places, including our parks, reserves, our rivers, our just all of our natural spaces.
Well, because I know that, me being Māori and our whakapapa, we whakapapa to our mountain and our waters, our rivers and our oceans closer to us. We tend to just look after that specific area where we're whakapapaing to, but we're not realising that it's a widespread and the waters are all connected. So eventually it's going to make its way to our one. So trying to share that to connect the whole of New Zealand, so we're all getting the same treatment and treating the country as we would our homes back up in Auckland, back up north or down south, and our little hometowns that we like to secure ourselves into. Bring it to where you're living and educate all the rest of the people around us.
Yeah, I mean, it's so like I mentioned, part of your well-being, right?
Yeah.
If the environment is thriving, then you
Yeah.
are thriving.
Yeah,
and
well, we would get our food out of there. We
Exactly.
would use the land to grow our vegetables. Yeah, and that's what we all know it. We've just all forgotten within time and the environment changing and new technology coming out. We got so caught up in the race that we've forgotten about how our grandparents and great-great-grandparents have grown up, and all they lived on was pretty much the land. So I think it's about time we start doing that again and stop going to grocery stores and thinking that that's where all the good stuff is, because it's actually can be grown and harvested in your own backyards.
Well, even if you are using a supermarket, that, that vegetable that you've bought from there has grown somewhere, it's still coming from the earth. And, like I talked about that circular economy, it's trying to replicate what nature is like, right? Nature is in a circular system, and so if the waters are polluted with the rubbish that we're throwing away, then the marine life will be suffering, and then we use and eat that as well, and it comes back to us. And we're not separate from nature, and I think we sometimes forget that.
Yeah.
And so to look after nature is to look after ourselves. And I sometimes forget that, even in my own life and my own space. And that's when you start getting involved in community initiatives like this, it really reminds you of that. And so it's got all these other benefits as well. When you can join with other people towards that goal, it's so rewarding. And even if it's just a small singular step that you take, using your food scraps bin, or even just booking in that one in organics collection, joining in on a local cleanup. It looks different to everyone, how they want to get involved, but taking that first step is, it's enough.
Yeah.
It's better than us having that continuing disconnection. So if there was anything that people take away from this, is that you don't have to reinvent the wheel, you don't have to single-handedly save the world. It's about doing things together and taking that first step. Awesome.
Thank you, Erin, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
We'll close off the podcast with that. So working together, you guys work together, work alongside us. You can find us down here in Ōtara. You can find Erin in Manirewa.
I mean, I'm all over. Just hit me up, come have a kōrero. I'm always happy to talk about the environment. Yeah.
Because I know the conversation could have went on and on and on, but I know that we do need to get out there and do some real mahi.
Yeah.
So I'd like to thank you once again for coming in and speaking to us, and I'm sure we'll see you soon.
Oh, I'll be around for sure.
Yeah. I know there's a meeting scheduled soon, so
absolutely.
We'll catch up then. And thank you everyone for listening. And hi to Erin's mom.
Kia ora.